Jiang Wuxiang started to observe our boy, cracked his fingers, and with a smile decided to go with him. If Chu Jiang was in danger, it was the duty of the Jinganan team to help. Ying Zan's eyes began to shine with joy, and with a smile, he mentioned that he was also going to help Jiang. Jia Shanyu's attention was fixed on Jiang, and her eyes widened with determination. She clenched her fist and said that if any of them had problems, it was everyone's duty to help. Upon hearing this, Jiang turned towards them and remained silent. He could not believe that they were willing to help him. Zhu Wenji began to stare at our boy in silence. Jiang's eyes began to shine with joy, and with a smile. He thanked them all from the bottom of his heart. With a serious gaze, Zhu Wenji extended his hand, making the hologram of a powerful monster appear. He revealed that the city was being attacked by a beast tide and even the strongest warriors had little chance of surviving, much less young geniuses like them. He mentioned that they still had a bright future, asking if they were truly willing to go knowing they were going to die. The eyes of the lilac-haired woman widened with concern. She placed her hand over her chest, knowing that this battle was not the most suitable for her. Beside her was Hua Yanfei. His eyes widened in fear, making him unable to avoid swallowing hard and becoming nervous. Little by little, many of the geniuses began to feel afraid, knowing that being weak would only slow down the others. For Ying Zan and the others, it was a shame for the capital to have such companions as them. With an angry gaze, he gave orders for those who were cowardly and weak to leave since otherwise they would only be a burden on everyone else. Many of the geniuses, including Hua Yanfei, turned their backs on Jiang and the others and left. Seeing this, Zhu Wenji asked if Jiang really wanted to go save Chu Jiang. Our boy's eyes widened with determination. And with a confident gaze, he mentioned that even if the whole world was against him, he was going to save his city. Ying Zan began stretching his arms and, with a serious expression, explained that if his ancestors, the descendants of the human emperor, were here, they would undoubtedly praise Jiang Chen. Jiang Washuang joined his hands, closed his eyes, and began to meditate, explaining to his grandfather that he had managed to obtain an invincible heart and from this moment on, he was going to start his own journey. Jia Kunyu's eyes expanded with rage, she clenched her fists, and with a furious expression asked how there could be no one from her city helping. The others also filled themselves with determination since they could not say that they could not help when they shared the same city. Zhu Wenji's gaze fixed on them, he extended his hands to the sides and praised them for being brave. For him, it was no surprise that they were prodigies of the new generation of great Xia. He decided to allow only the top 10 of the prodigy ranking to go to Chu Jiang. He revealed that the others would be eliminated from the competition. Upon hearing this, the geniuses put their hands on their heads and could not help but panic. Zhu Wenji explained that the next phase of the competition had been cancelled and instead a battle of merits would take place. He used his powers, making a bracelet appear on Jiang's wrists and those of the others. Our boy's attention focused on the bracelet, and his eyes widened with curiosity. Meanwhile, on the other side, Jiang Washuang began observing the bracelet in silence. The bracelet was responsible for recording merits, and the final ranking would be based on merits obtained during battle. Zhu Wenji closed his eyes, started touching his chin, and decided to warn them one last time. The great Xia could not afford to lose in weight, and if they died, they would only prove that they were not worthy enough. He asked them not to have illusions since if they wanted to survive, they could only rely on their own strength. Zhu Wenji opened his eyes and saw that no one was listening to him. Seeing this, he became somewhat confused. A portal appeared, Jiang and the others began to enter inside it. Jiang Washuang turned towards his grandfather and, with a confused expression, asked the old man to stop talking so much. Ying Zhang, who was walking towards the portal, thanked Zhu Wenji for worrying about them but admitted that his old persuasion trick was not going to work, asking him not to worry about them since they were not going to die so easily. Zhu Wenji began to observe them in silence, until he started stroking his beard and his gaze fixed on the sky. He was furious to see that they dared to say that he was old. With a smile, he decided to take them next time to the depths of the cave so they could see his imposing murderous figure, knowing that then they would not speak of him that way. To him, they were worthy of admiration and he hoped they would manage to survive. A lilac-haired woman fell to her knees on the ground, put her hands on her face, and began to cry, begging for forgiveness. Hua Yanfei fell to his knees on the ground and began crying, asking for forgiveness for being so fearful. One of the men extended his hand and asked them to stop crying since as long as they remained alive, they would not lack opportunities to become stronger. Besides, if Jiying and the others died, they could take advantage of the opportunity to enter the ranking. On the defense line of the eastern sea of Jinganan, a horde of fierce sea beasts began to approach the coast, destroying everything in their path. The cannons on the defense line activated and started attacking the beasts. On the wall were Jiyu Kaishan and Duanfeng. Jiyu Kaishan's attention was fixed on the beasts, realizing that this tide of beasts seemed endless and that something was not right. He mentioned that this time the tide of beasts was very strange since, in terms of scale, it was undoubtedly one of the largest in history, but the battle was not intense at all. Duanfeng, who had his arms crossed, began to observe the beasts and asked if this was a distraction. Jiyu Kaishan explained that the attack by the sea beasts was only meant to draw the attention of elite forces. Duanfeng supported his knee on the ground and with a suspicious expression realized that the enemy's target was another. Upon hearing this, Jiyu Kaishan became serious and asked if the target was Kujang city. Duanfeng stood up and with a sincere gaze said that he was not very sure. Since in addition to the forbidden zone of marine beings and the rebellion in the caverns, there were 5 more cities of Great Shear that were being attacked by beast tides. All being small remote cities, far from the main bases. Jiyu Kaishan's attention was fixed on him, he became curious and remained listening in silence. Duanfeng revealed that Kujang was one of the cities that was being attacked, and no one knew for sure if the enemy's target was this city or another. While the cannons were attacking the beasts, Duanfeng revealed that Zunji had sent a message saying that Jiangquan and the others had teleported from the main base of the Kalua war zone to City Yi in the Jinganan war zone. Upon hearing this, Jiyu Kaishan did not take long to realize that they were planning to go to Kujang. He could not help but panic since he had told Zunji not to tell Jiying about the beast tide in Kujang. Jiyu Kaishan stood up and started running along the wall. He was furious and thought that Zunji was a traitorous dog. He decided to return for the sake of his disciple. In the past, he had already lost one and could not afford to lose another. Duanfeng panicked and started running after him, asking him to calm down since besides Jiangquan, Wen Zan, Zai Zhenyu, Jing Washwang, the Jinganan team was also in Kujang. Just then, a powerful sea beast emerged from the water, Duanfeng and Jiyu Kaishan's attention fixed on it. This monster was the 8th Sea Emperor. And now that it had appeared, Jiyu Kaishan could not leave since if the defense line broke, Jinganan would face a great calamity. The beast prepared to attack. Jiyu Kaishan jumped up, drew his sword and decided to kill it. At the same time, in the city of Kujang, the warriors created a shield around the city. The tide of monsters began to attack the barrier, little by little creating small cracks. The commander of the troops, Yin Hengying, extended his hand toward the beasts and with a determined expression gave the order to all battalions of Kujang's defense legion to come with him and help close the breaches in K barrier, making it clear that if he died, the captain would take his place, and if the captain died, the lieutenant would take his place, and if the lieutenant died, the sergeant would take his place. The number of casualties did not matter since what was most important was buying time for the warriors in the rear. Outside the city, several beasts tried to attack Jigang, but he drew his sword and finished them off without much effort. While Aunt Tang's eyes were shining with hatred, she jumped and delivered a powerful kick to a flying beast, splitting its body in half. Chu Buling activated the celestial armor, making his body more muscular, without much effort. He caught a beast and using his strength split its arm in half. Shaoqi extended her hands, and her eyes began to shine with seriousness. She applied the buff of the sacred light on Chu Buling and asked him not to lower his guard since a devouring crow was behind him. After killing the beast, Chu Buling turned around and saw how the devouring crow was approaching him at full speed. He went on alert as a monstrous tentacle was wrapping around his arm, knowing he was in trouble. Duan Feng, who was on top of the turret, attacked the beast with his bow, barely saving Chu Buling. Seeing this, he couldn't help but thank him, saying that he had arrived just in time. Ji Gang, who was somewhat tired, stood up and his attention fixed on Duan Feng. He mentioned that if Duan Feng, being the commander of the Night Watch, also died in battle, the Night Watch would become extinct. Duan Feng asked him to stop being so pessimistic since they still had Jiang Chen. And as long as he remained alive, the Night Watch would never disappear. Duan Feng, who was on top of the turret, saw 5 level 5 eagles and 2 level 6 celestial apes. He panicked upon seeing that the monsters were coming toward them instead of attacking the defense shield. He knew that a great battle was about to begin. But he didn't care and wanted to give his best, since he had already given the order anyway. If the defense shield broke, they would launch 8 nuclear bombs at the beasts. Ji Gang's eyes began to shine with rage. He raised his sword into the sky and asked the members of the Night's Watch not to forget the oath that united them all. Ji Gang and Aunt Tang began advancing toward the beasts. Xiao Qi, who was behind them, applied the buff of holy light on them. Chu Buling also started advancing toward the beasts. And Ji Gang swung his sword forcefully. A beast tried to attack Aunt Tang, but she jumped and with a single kick cut off its head. Chu Buling grabbed a beast and slammed it hard against the ground, and Xiao Qi applied the buff on him to help him. She looked up, and her eyes widened in fear and panic. She started screaming, asking everyone to be careful. The level 6 celestial great ape appeared and attacked with a fierce punch, but Ji Gang and the others reacted in time and blocked the attack with their hands. Little by little, Aunt Tang began to run out of strength. Ji Gang's gaze fixed on the beast, seeing that its pressure was too overwhelming. He realized that there was no way to dodge the attack. So it was better to face it head-on. They had been fighting for several hours and were already at their limit. They tried to resist, but it was in vain. The ape attacked, sending their bodies flying backward. Now that they were weak, the ape approached them and, with a penetrating gaze, it prepared to crush them with its foot. Ji Gang and Tang were kneeling on the ground, her eyes filled with fear upon seeing this. Ji Gang stabbed the sword into the ground, and his eyes widened in despair. He could not believe he was going to die like this. He had not yet been able to see Jiang reach first place in the ranking of geniuses. Nor had he been able to boast to his master that he had finally advanced to the 4th transformation and mastered his sword. Just before the monster could attack, someone cut off its head. Ji Gang and Tang's gaze fixed on it. Both were in shock, not knowing what was happening. It was Jiang. Once the monster's head fell to the ground, our boy placed his hand on it and, using poisonous mists, began to devour its head. His eyes started shining with joy, and with a smile, he revealed that he had returned to save the Night Watch. Jiang extended his hand and used his power, making a shield appear. With a serious gaze, he asked Ji Gang and the others to enter the shield to recover while he took care of the rest. Ji Gang's eyes widened in surprise, and his jaw dropped. He didn't know if this was an illusion. Seeing Jiang, Tang couldn't help but smile, and with a joyful expression. She said that it wasn't an illusion but the real Jiang Chen. Ji Gang panicked, explaining that this was a beast's hide. Knowing that Jiang had come alone to die, according to him. This was the end since now the Night Watch was going to be annihilated. Jiang turned towards them and with a smile realized that no one knew about the time he had used Little 9 against Xiao Zhengou. Little by little, the poisonous mists began to devour the ape's corpse. Our boy turned towards the corpse and asked Ji Gang and the others not to underestimate him, advising them to pay attention. Everyone's attention was fixed on the corpse, realizing that this was the power of the Calamity 9 miasma wings. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, so subscribe to our channel, share the video. And like.
Upon seeing Zhang's poisonous mist, Jiagang's eyes widened in surprise and his jaw dropped, realizing that Zhang had defeated a 6th-level beast, with strength similar to that of a professional of the 6th transformation of star rank. Aunt Tang's eyes expanded in confusion. She was in shock upon seeing our boy's power. To them, Jiang Chen was not someone ordinary, realizing that now the city of Kujiang had hope. Zhang turned towards them and couldn't help but feel relieved to see that he had arrived on time. With a confident smile, he revealed that this time he was not alone, his companions had also come. This was not just a rescue mission, but the final stage of the genius ranking competition, a battle for glory and merit. At the same time, Tang Ying and Bai Feng were fighting against several beasts. Both turned their backs to each other and started battling. With a confused expression, she began looking at Zhang and explained that even if they gave their best effort, it took them several minutes to defeat a level 4 fierce beast. But Jiang Chen, using Little Nine's poisonous mist, had annihilated a 6th-level beast in less than a minute. For her, competing for the merit ranking made no sense. A beast tried to attack Bai Feng, but he drew his sword and cut the monster's head in half. His attention fixed on Tang Ying, and with a calm gaze, he explained that this was not as unfair as she believed since, after all, the merits that Zhang obtained using the power of the 9 miasma wings only counted as 1/10 of normal merits. Not far away were Lai and his friend. Lei's eyes began to shine with excitement, and with a smile, he attacked a beast, slamming its body against the ground and tearing off a limb. He was excited because it was the first time he had fought against a horde of beasts, realizing that they kept coming non-stop. His friend, who was behind him, extended his hands and using his power began to strengthen Lai, asking him not to get distracted since these beasts were not like those from the camp of geniuses. They had to be careful with beasts beyond their ability since they could attack them by surprise. Mu Henkyu and Luo Sando had also come to help Zhang. Mu Henkyu drew both daggers and defeated a flying beast, but just then, another beast tried to launch a surprise attack. Fortunately, Luo Sando summoned a barrier around her, blocking the attack. Luo Sando's eyes filled with seriousness, and she asked Mu Henkyu to remain calm since as long as she was covering her, there was nothing to fear. With a determined gaze, Mu Henkyu promised to fight with everything she had to protect Zhang's city. They did not care about the competition. They were willing to let others fight for the genius ranking since they only cared about Zhang. Jianyu decided not to stand idly by. She raised the bow into the sky and used the scorching sun technique called Golden Phoenix Fire Rain, causing a powerful phoenix made of fire to emerge from her bow. During the secret realm, she had not shown a good performance and knew that now was the perfect time to do so. She decided to give her best to impress Zhang. Zhang Wuxuan clasped his hands together and used his power, causing a powerful golden energy to emerge from his body. He used the technique called War God's Body, making a powerful 9-armed spirit appear. A beast tried to attack, but the spirit delivered a powerful punch, splitting the beast's body in half. Zhang Wuxuan wanted to completely master the invincible heart since he did not want Zhang Cheng to be the only hero. And although in the secret realm he had not been up to par with him, now things were different. Yin Zhang's eyes began to shine with excitement. He had defeated a large number of beasts, and now under his feet was a mountain of corpses. Several powerful beasts began to fly towards him. Yin Zhang started to smile and decided that it was time to use the human emperor's sword. A powerful sword surrounded by a suffocating energy began to descend from the sky. Before in the secret realm, he had thought that he didn't need to use this sword against them. But now he had realized that if he wanted to defeat Zhang, he had to give it his all. As the only descendant of the human emperor, he made it clear that the first place in the genius ranking belonged to him. Seeing their power, Aunt Tang grabbed Jiagang by the arm and with a surprised expression said that the new generation of geniuses was incredible. Jiagang's eyes widened in fear. Realizing they were getting old, Zhang clenched his fist tightly and with a smile began to release poisonous mist. He felt excited since Jiang Wushuang had become much more powerful compared to when they were in the secret realm, and Yin Chang had unsheathed the human emperor's sword. Jia Gang and Aunt Tang started watching our boy, not knowing why he was smiling. Jiang knew very well that even though he had Little Nine as his trump card, he couldn't just stand idly by. Jiang took momentum, and while his eyes were shining with joy, he began to move quickly towards the horde of beasts, and with a smile. He asked Jia Gang and Tang to watch since today he was not only going to finish off the beasts, but also going to obtain the first place in the ranking of geniuses. Jia Gang and Tang started to observe our boy, firmly believing that he could achieve it. Xiaoqi stood up, extended her hands towards Shu Belong and the others, and using her power, she began to heal them. Jia Gang stood up, began to approach them, and with an expression full of fear revealed that he had a bad feeling, asking Xiaoqi to come with him as they needed to hurry and repair the protection spell. With a serious gaze, she turned to Jia Gang and nodded her head. Not far from the area was the lover. Her eyes widened in rage upon seeing Jiang Cheng. She was furious not knowing how he and the others were still alive. They were on top of a cliff. In the middle of the city, a great explosion occurred, and the air filled with poisonous mist. She was confused, not knowing if the young divine had been defeated. She had heard about the poisonous mist of the 9 miasma wings, but had never imagined it would be such a powerful ability. She leaped and decided to go to Quzhang's underground rift to inform the ancient god, ordering her subordinates to immediately report to the Abyss Spider Queen so that she could act at once, since only she could face off against the 9 miasma wings. The hooded men crouched down and nodded their heads. Back to the battle, Zhang drew his sword, and using the Thunder Sword skill, he moved quickly, cutting the body of a beast into pieces. After defeating the beast, he rested his sword on his shoulder, and his eyes widened with confidence. Little Nine manifested, but now in the form of the mother insect. She devoured a beast and with a piercing gaze informed Zhang that she had eaten another beast. With a smile, our boy gave her permission to eat until she could no longer. Little by little, she began to fill up, and after devouring so many beasts, the system granted our boy more than 60,000 experience points, leveling up from 48 to 57 in an instant. Zhang appeared in his sea of consciousness where Little Nine was eating a beast. Our boy extended his hand, making appear the cards he had obtained from the tree's fruits. His eyes widened with joy as a smile appeared on his face. Thanks to the double experience card, he and Little Nine had reached level 57. This horde of beasts was a perfect opportunity, as if that weren't enough. They also had an exemption card for the third transformation. So tonight they were going to be able to complete it, obtaining a new mother insect. Zhao Jia appeared, began to show a finger, and with a sincere look explained that on the battlefield there were many souls, asking if he needed help to collect them. Upon hearing his voice, Zhang turned towards him, and with a confused expression asked if he did not want to devour the souls. Zhao Jia began to gaze at the ground and touch the tips of his fingers, explaining that these things did not interest him since Jiang had promised him a great banquet. But our boy explained that the fruits of the tree needed to be watered with souls, asking him to go collect the souls. With a serious expression, he asked Zhao Jia to be careful and keep a low profile since he was his secret card and should not reveal his existence unless absolutely necessary. Zhao Jia nodded his head. The merit list of Grand Zia appeared. In the first place was Zhang Xuanzi, in the second was Zhu Linggu. In the third, the great dreamer Huan Yu. In 28th place was Gu Kaishan. In 296th place was Zhang Chen. In 401st place was Ying Zhang. And in 568th place was Zhang Hoshuang. Ying Zhang, who was holding the human emperor's sword, began to observe the bracelet, and upon seeing that in such a short time Zhang Chen had entered the top 300 of the Daxia merit ranking, his eyes filled with rage as, unlike Zhang, he was still outside the top 400. With an expression full of determination, Ying Zhang moved quickly and started using the sword to massacre all the beasts in his path. He knew that if he wanted to surpass Jiang, he had to find another way. Merits could not only be obtained by killing beasts, but also by contributing. He knew that with such a large horde of beasts, there had to be a rift. He decided to find it and destroy it, since only this way would he be able to surpass Jiang. At the same time, Jie Gang and the others were on top of the city wall. Zhao Qi's eyes widened with seriousness. She placed her hands on her knees and informed Jie Gang that she had already repaired the protection spell. Jie Gang, who was sitting on the wall, began to observe Jiang and asked why he had ventured so deep into enemy lines. Shu Bulin crossed his arms and explained that he had nothing to fear since, with the help of the 9 miasma wings, he could carve his way through. Jiang Chen was like a monarch, strolling through his own territory. Jie Gang's eyes widened with confidence. He began pointing at Jiang with his finger, and thought that he must be taking advantage of this great opportunity to level up and advance directly to the 3rd transformation. Su Bulin's eyes expanded in surprise upon learning that Jiang was about to advance to the 3rd transformation. He put his hand under his chin and remembered that after the 3rd class change, warriors became stronger and could even evolve their professions. But the 3rd change mission was a great obstacle, in which even Shu Bulin had been stuck for 4 years. Jie Gang's gaze fixed on Jiang, and he began to imagine Zhang Xuanji Gu Kaishan and Jiang explaining that the 3rd, 6th, and 9th class changes were 3 great challenges, difficult to overcome. Many awakened spent their entire lives without being able to break these barriers, but this generation of prodigies was different. Yin Zhan, Jai Xuanyu, and Zhang Wushuang had reached the 3rd class change before the great genius competition. Some were even already at a stage where they could reach the 4th transformation at any moment. Compared to them, Jiang Chen was somewhat slow. As they were conversing, Jiang's ancestral tree manifested itself, capturing everyone's attention. Jie Gang's eyes widened in surprise along with those of Shu Bulin and Kaioki as their jaws dropped upon realizing that Jiang had begun the 3rd class change. They were in shock seeing that his professions were improving directly. No one knew how he had skipped the class change mission. The ancestral tree was gigantic, and the area was filled with the corpses of beasts. Seeing this, Jie Gang couldn't help but wonder if Jiang had some legendary item to skip the mission. But he panicked since he knew that Jiang had been transported to the initiation space, leaving him vulnerable and making it very dangerous. Tang Ying's attention, who was holding the body of a beast, and Bai Feng's focused on the ancestral tree. To them, Jiang was very brave for wanting to make a breakthrough directly on the battlefield. They decided to hurry and go protect him. Luo Sandao jumped and asked Mu Hankyu not to get caught up in battle since Jiang was making a breakthrough, and they needed to go protect him. Jiang Wuxiang's eyes widened with excitement. He knew that he couldn't surpass him for now, so he decided to go help defend him. Meanwhile, Ying Zhang reached a giant beast which could establish a long-distance transmission channel. There were 2 beasts, one called Yin and the other Yang. The Yang beast was in front of him, and the Yin beast had to be on the other side, underground. He began to observe the beast and felt fortunate, since he only had to eliminate one of them, and the transmission would stop. He gripped his sword tightly, and despite knowing that this was a 7th-level beast, it was no match for the descendant of the human emperor. With a confident expression, he took out 3 forbidden spell seals, which were more than enough to defeat a 7th-level beast. He was confident that first place in the genius ranking would be his. Just then, the portal behind him activated. Ying Zhang turned around and with a confused expression began to wonder what was happening. Not long after, someone emerged from the portal. Ying Zhang's attention fixed on it, and his eyes widened in fear, leaving him in shock. A powerful spider emerged from the portal and began staring at Ying Zhang. To her, he looked delicious. His attention fixed on her, and it didn't take long for him to realize that she was the Abyss Spider Queen. Compared to the spider, Ying Zhang was like a small insect. he remembered that she had managed to escape several times from the hands of the sword god Jai Lingqiu, so her strength was not ordinary. Moreover, forbidden spell seals were useless against her, making him realize that he had to flee since he was no match for her. He knew that Jiang Cheng was in the middle of his breakthrough. He had to find a way to escape and warn the others. The Spider Queen attacked with her sharp leg, but Ying Jiang reacted in time and, jumping, dodged the attack. Instead of fighting, he used the blood explosion technique and started to flee the area. The Spider Queen began to watch him in silence. Then, she extended her leg toward him and attacked. According to her, he was naive for thinking he could escape. Silk emerged from her leg and wrapped around Ying Jiang's arm. His eyes widened in fear. He clenched his teeth and his eyes began to shine with determination. Without hesitating for a second, using the sword, he cut off his own arm. And then he cut off both legs, causing blood to spurt out like jets. Ying Jiang used the ability called Concentrated Blood Mist and began to fly quickly toward the ancestral tree. The Spider Queen's eyes began to shine as she realized that Ying Jiang's body was full of vitality. Two men from the cult prostrated themselves before her, explaining that Jiang Cheng was in the middle of his breakthrough. His consciousness had entered the initiation space. So this was the perfect moment, asking her to go kill him to prevent him from causing problems in the future. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,